Welcome to Era Military Collectibles. I'm Steve.
I'm Pete, and we are from Living History UK, and this is the Living History UK Festival at Moira Furnace.
So they'll get a piece of leather, get a stone or something, and just batter it really, really thin, wafer thin, and cut a little shape like that. Okay. And what I do is get one of their musket balls, place that in the middle, fold it around, tie the top with cotton, and throw it in a bucket of water. And they would take these out and bake them by the fire, and it would literally go rock hard, the actual leather itself. And then they just snip the top off. And the end result is a musket ball that looks like that. It's got leather so hard on there, it's like it's baked on. And when they got that down the barrel, it would give them really pinpoint accuracy. You didn't have to worry about speed. There's a lot of myth about we could fire 3 rounds a minute with the rifle. Okay, if you had a clean rifle, you could fire 2 rounds a minute and be getting on to loading your third. But after you fired that, then there's so much crud and residue in the barrel that you're pretty much down to 1 round a minute, and you are actually smashing a ramrod down into your gun, into
In all fairness, I think I've seen more figures K's in reenactment than there probably were in real life.
Yeah, most
it's
likely.
Nice to see
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
They're not the commonest bit of kit, are they?
No, they're not.
You even got the cut down radiator.
Yeah, cut down radiator, strengthening bars for airdropping
Yeah.
the Jeep. On the passenger side, just below Jack's leg, you've got the additional fuel tanks which you
Yeah.
put in.
Singing that.
Right, when you're ready.
Hold it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Era Military Collectibles. So, we're at the Living History UK Festival and this is our stand. I'm here with Combined Living History Forces Group. Andrew is holding the camera. Now what we're displaying is Op Banner, Northern Ireland Troubles. As you can see by our display, we've everything from TAMs, Sterling machine guns, video cameras and cassette tapes that were used by the security forces, rations, all the way down to SAS equipment that would have been used in Northern Ireland. We also have a general purpose machine gun. We have the famous rubber bullet gun, or the baton gun, also known as a federal, and assortment of rifles and backpacks that they would have used. And inside in the back is Henry, Mr. RUC man.
So you 2 seconds.
You know, it was separate but friends.
Yeah.
bonkers one as well. That'll be the one, yes.
I've got it in my hand.
We are the Kent Fortress Royal Engineers. We're a TA unit formed in 1932, and whilst everyone might think that engineers build things and mend things, we're a demolitions unit.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Living History UK Festival. Day 2, and welcome to the first display of the day. Before you in the arena, you've got a small detachment from the 2nd Battalion, the Rifle Brigade, as they were at the start of the Crimean War. Something that we're not allowed to talk about now because apparently we've got a real Crimean War going on at the moment. But actually, we were involved in one back in the 1850s.
From the centre!
To curtail Russian expansionism, and they've taken sides with Turkey, and in order to try and support Turkey's fight against the Russians, the British and French sent an expedition to the Crimea to seize the Russian port of Sevastopol, which is their main naval base in the region. All these names are very prevalent in current affairs, let alone in history as well. The British Army sent what was effectively still a Napoleonic army, but it had its uniforms and equipment had been improved since the time, but its organisation and structures were still very much those that were used against the French some 35 years earlier in the Napoleonic Wars. And what we have here are riflemen. Skirmishers. You can see them now deployed in what is known as skirmish order. They're also trained to load and fight on the march all the time rather than standing in the serried ranks or breastcoated line. 2nd Battalion Rifles landed with the main British force in Kilometre Bay early in 1854. And they decided they were going to move in what they called light sails. So before getting off the boats, they got rid of their heavy knapsacks and carried with them enough clothing and equipment to see them for a week.
For YouTube as well, so we share our hobby online. Bring our own YouTube channels. John's come over from Ireland for this show.
Oh, was that the only bit that was there?
No problem at all. Have a good day.
All right. Very
Dodge
nice
the rain.
meeting you. All right, thank you.
And welcome to C Company Op Herrick and Telic Display Team, and today I'm going to give you a quick talk and walk through our display here at the Living History UK Festival 2023. Starting off at the catalyst for the whole global war on terror. That was 9/11. September 11th, 2001, the attacks in New York on the Twin Towers, obviously the catastrophic loss of life and the following events. Here we have a small display covering the actual day itself, some newspapers from the day and two afterwards, covering the actual the site and the apocalypse that happened. But the two mannequins here, one is actually covering the Northern Alliance. Now these guys were already in Afghanistan and they were fighting against the Taliban. They wanted democracy, a form of democracy, and not the extremist views of the Taliban. But as soon as September 11th happened, the CIA, who were already in country, were bolstered by the American Special Forces. And this mannequin here is covering one of the ODA teams that went over and did the initial attacks, as it were, and coordinated air support. Now, this has been made famous by the film 12 Strong. It's a highly recommended watch, at which they got the nickname of horse soldiers because they were riding around with the Northern Alliance coordinating airstrikes. Later in the October and beginning of the November, our own British Special Air Service went into country. Now, at this time, they were highly mobile, operating out of the DPV Land Rovers, Desert Patrol vehicles, and actually doing quite long-range attacks on opium productions and trying to actually disrupt the Taliban flow of money into country. And here we have an example wearing a World War II vintage windproof smock, and this chap here has obviously done some work with the South Africans because he's wearing a South African chest rig. We now jump forward 2 years and we're now going for the invasion of Iraq. The claims of weapons of mass destruction held by the Hussein administration, shall we say, led to the invasion of the country. And here we have an example of how the requirements to invade Iraq required the call out of the National Guard in America. This chap here being a veteran of the First Gulf War and also being a paratrooper and airborne assault. And our own British forces and our territorial army. And here we have, obviously, with the claim of weapons of mass destruction, the requirement for NBC suits, NBC being nuclear, biological and chemical warfare, and the associated equipment. The two weapons you can see on the table in front of you are the LSW, which is the light support weapon, and the infamous GPMG, the general purpose machine gun, a 7.62 belt-fed machine gun, which has been absolutely loved by British forces and increased in their rotation since. The uniform you can see in front of you now is British DPM, but what's interesting about it is the insignia links it to a soldier who was serving in the 3 Commando Brigade. But not just any soldier. This chap has completed the Army Commando course and he's also completed P Company, so he's a proper hard nut. Moving along, we can see after the change of administration in Iraq, the restabilisation and rebuilding of the country and policing of the country. We have an Iraqi army helmet at the back, which was supplied en masse to the newly formed Iraqi army, and a new flag with the new administration. It was at this time, about 2005-2006, that in Afghanistan there was the Great Push, as it was known as, pushing into the heartland of the Taliban. The Taliban's capital was Kandahar, and in all the Helmand province, moving up the Sangin Valley, was where their homeland was. The problem with this area is, it's not open desert. It's not like Iraq with big vast swathes of open desert. It is actually woodland, cropped farmland. The Americans, in their influence, trialled a new uniform, and that was the one in front of you, the digital camouflage. This uniform lasted for about 2, 3, 4 years because it was terrible. It did not work in the woodlands, as illustrated by the picture here. You can see digital camouflage in woodland does not work. Along with that push was our own British forces in working up the Sangin Valley. And this mannequin in front of you here is a member of the Pathfinder platoon of the Parachute Regiment, specifically the Prepared Pathfinder. Check him out on YouTube, Tom Blakely, because this is mostly his original kit that he donated to me. They were held up in Musakala for 6 weeks with no supply, and at the end of that 6 weeks they were running short on ammunition, i.e. 1 or 2 mags a man, and to the point they'd actually run out of ration packs, and they were actually buying and butchering local goats to survive, basically. And in Tom's own words, goat gets very boring very quickly. Moving along, the expansion of the global war on terror pulled in other coalition nations. Here we have an example of where the Australians have come in, as well as we had the Jordanians, the Polish, we had I think Croatians, the French definitely had special forces in country. But this uniform here shows about 2009 the first mentoring team of the Australian Army, the first tour of the mentoring team. This uniform was kindly donated to the collection from Era Military Collectibles. Moving along with the stabilisation of the two countries, we try to recruit and increase their own forces. And here we have an example of the Afghani army, ANA, the Afghan National Army, their own special forces commandos. They were recruited and to hopefully try and stabilise the country. And this chap here is obviously wearing an American BDU uniform, green uniform, but the insignia relates it to the Afghan Special Forces. Now, the body armour you can see in front of you looks totally different to what we traditionally with. This was known as Osprey body armour. And with Osprey body armour, the plate system on it actually covers the full front and full back of the wearer, and a later version also had plates that covers the side of the body. With that, it allowed full round protection. Earlier body armour only had a small piece that covered the heart. Now with developing war, we're now moving into 2014, 2015, we've really picked up our game. The kit and equipment is specifically based on counterinsurgency and vehicle-based operations. As you can see here, the Osprey is the later, the body armour is the later Osprey version, and the emphasis is not having pouches on the body armour, but having a battle belt. So a battle belt is basically taking your old PLC webbing, take off the yoke and just having it around your waist. The idea being that if you were a casualty, parts of your body armour could be taken off easily, and your belt kit could be taken off easily. That was a problem with earlier body armour, where if somebody had been wounded, it took far too long to get the body armour off to get to the wound, as it were. Now it's all quick release, one pull handle on the front, the whole body armour will fall apart, allowing easy access. That as well allowed for development of medical equipment. When we first went into Afghanistan, we were using shell dressings that our grandfathers would have remembered during the Second World War. Basic shell dressings that hold 1 pint of blood, that type of basic simplistic equipment. By this time we'd brought along the CAT tourniquet, we'd brought along the Israeli bandage, which was a compression bandage with a built-in semi-tourniquet. But all the British servicemen had been taught how to use a tourniquet correctly, but also how to use compression bandages correctly. So there's greater knowledge, improved for greater saving of life. And moving on to the end here, we have the evacuation from Kabul, also known as op pitting. The point I like to raise with op pitting is some of the young paratroopers in there, known as Toms, young paratroopers, 18, 19-year-olds, weren't even born when 9/11 happened. That goes to show the spread of the global war on terror, how it happened over 20 years, and some of these guys had not even been born at that time, but how it affected them over that era. And that's all from C Company Op Harrigan Tele Display Team. I hope you've had a good day and
Yes,